Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Heart for the Community. Good evening, everyone from my personal Facebook page. And good evening to all of you who will catch it on YouTube on my Carl's Conversations page. We thank you for coming with us again this evening. Heart for the Community has been very busy during the quarantine season, and now that we're coming out of that season, we're still very busy working for the community. Tonight is a very special broadcast. This is something very near and dear to our hearts. I'm are aware of the current climate in our country, and not just our country. The world has been affected. Incident in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with Mr. George Floyd, and it really has blown the top of off of a problem that we've had in our country and around the world, but especially here in the U.S. The problem of racism, institutional and historic racism, and how it has affected the black family, the black culture, the black community. And so tonight, our purpose of coming on is to kind of open the window to the house and let our audience see from a black mother's perspective, not only about this incident and how this incident has affected us, but also the total climate, because for us, none of this is new. For our non-black audience members, if you talk to some of your black coworkers, your black associates, your black friends, you'll know that this is a we've been having for our entire lives. So this is not new. What is new is that it seems like the world has finally gotten to a point of maybe saying that is enough. And we're hoping that this current zeal that we see for righteousness and equality and justice, that it will remain so that we can effect changes with policymakers. We have a wonderful cast tonight. Before I introduce them, I just want to make sure that we're very clear. Our goal tonight is not to bash any group, any persons. Uh, this is not hate by any means. It is absolutely love. We're hoping that having this conversation will be a part of overall understanding. There are probably members outside of our community who really don't understand. And I'm finding that in conversations that I'm having in my workplace and other places, that a lot of people really don't understand our plight. They don't understand. And so we're hoping this conversation will kind of open the door for you to understand. All right. These perspectives and these stories that you hear tonight are not the whole story, but they are a part of the story, which will be very, very important. And listen, feel free to ask questions, feel free to comment. All those that we can get to, we will get to. So I'm going to start running my mouth, and we have four members of our panel tonight. We have Wendy from Sumter, South Carolina, and we're going to give Wendy a moment to just introduce herself.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to think that I have something to say about this issue as a Black mother, a Black wife, a Black grandmother. I have three sons. I have 10 male grandchildren um, that I think this is very pertinent to. I also have Black granddaughters and one granddaughter and one daughter, because I think this issue, while it primarily concerns our Black males, is our Black daughters and our Black females are not excluded from this conversation. Um, so this is a conversation that I think anyone with a child of color starts having from the minute their child is born into this society. So I too am eager for the conversation this evening. I would love to have people ask me questions as well as I give my opinions on the topics and thoughts that come up. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, Miss Wendy. Next up will be Tisha Armstrong. That's my wife, y'all. But we're gonna let her introduce herself.
Good evening. As he indicated, I am Tisha Armstrong. I am the mother of four children, adults, three daughters, one son, and a grandson. So for me, it is imperative that we have these conversations, as uncomfortable as they are. As Aunt Wendy indicated, this is something that is, what we deal with every day, as she indicated, from the time that we are young up until today. We clearly know that we have brown skin. So again, I would like to have the conversation to enlighten those who do not know, who do not understand, who are our allies and are interested in making the change. So we're just here to present information and again to give my opinions.
Thank you, Tisha. Next, we have Monica from Chesapeake, Virginia. Please give an introduction.
Hello, all. I am Monique. I am from Chesapeake. I have two daughters, one granddaughter. I have a husband, brothers, sisters, cousins, and all. However, I don't have any sons. But as as Tisha stated, with us having brown skin, it affects not just the men, but also our daughters, us. And I'm glad to be a part of this discussion.
All right, thank you. And last but not least, our anchor tonight, Miss Paulette from Fredericksburg.
Yes, I am from Fredericksburg by way of Decatur, Georgia, by way of Birmingham,
Mhm.
Alabama, which is my hometown. I am the mother of three, one adult son. Well, all of my children are adults. I have one adult son who lives here in Fredericksburg. Three grandchildren, two of which are male child. Um, I agree with all the ladies on the panel. This is a conversation that need to happen. Um, as Carl said, we are not here to bash anyone, but just to bring awareness to what we are, who we are, and what it means to be a mother of a black son or just black children in general in the year 2020.
Thank you so much. And just for our audience, please, if this is interesting so far, please start a watch party. Contact people that you know. Tell them to meet you at the Heart for the Community Facebook page. Tell them to meet you on Carl's Facebook page or even on YouTube on Carl's Conversations, that channel. All right, so this is where I want to start. Um, I want to start with what we all witnessed um, with Mr. Floyd. When you all saw that video of that policeman's knee on him begging for his life, begging for mercy, and then when he begged for his mother, what, I don't even know how to ask the question. How did that make you feel? What did that do to you as a black mom, as a black wife?
I'll, I'll,
Um, okay, go ahead.
I'd like to start only because I wasn't even able to watch the whole video because the minute I started seeing him saying, I can't breathe, in my mind, the faces of my three sons and my 10 grandboys started floating through my head. And I became so emotional till I didn't know what to do. And I had to stop watching because it almost took me into a state of panic because now it's like, where is everybody at? Where's my husband, who's a long distance truck driver? Where is he at? Where are my three boys at? Where are my grandchildren at this very moment? What are they doing? Are they in danger? How can I help them? So it sent a myriad of emotions through me almost immediately. And it just
Hmm.
took over my whole body. And you have compassion for anyone in that state. And how do you help? What do we need to do? This has got to stop, was my initial thought.
Hmm.
Wow. Thank you.
Wendy, I agree with you. I could barely
Hmm.
watch it. I actually just saw the pictures and it literally broke my heart because when I saw the pictures, I actually saw life had gone out of his body at that particular point. And like you said, you get out of yourself, you get out of that self, and you see your child. That could be my son, that could be my grandson, that could be my brothers. And just to hear the fact that he's calling out for his mother, somebody that is known to be there to protect their child against someone hurting them, it does something to a mother's heart. And I don't mean to get emotional about it because like you said, it breaks your heart, it breaks you down, and you can't do anything to help. If you had been there, if the mother had been there, or if somebody could have been there to help, it would have been more devastating because it was nothing they could do to help with fear of being in the same position he was in a matter of seconds.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When I saw the video initially, well, actually, when I got on Facebook that morning, I saw someone had posted a picture, and I just said maybe this isn't real. Then later on that day, um, well, a few minutes go by, I saw the video. I could not watch it in its entirety because I just could not believe it. Then I was like, well, the people are beside him saying, get off of him. And he's saying he can't breathe and he's begging for his life. And then, he has handcuffs. You can see the other police officers there. And you're just like, well, why wouldn't he just like ease up on the guy? And then as more and more videos surface, you see that they took him out of the van. He was cooperating the whole time. And just like, how can your heart be so hard to do this for a person, and then you put your hand in your pocket, and then that's even more pressure, and for almost 9 minutes, that was I'm sure that was tiresome to him. So that was like, to me, pure hatred, because you want to end this person's life or something that bad that you're gonna really do this. It's just like, it's unbelievable. And I was just like, this is just happening too often, whereas the young lady was asleep in her own bed coming home from working, I'm sure long shifts within the medical field as an EMT, and she's shot dead, in her house, and oh, I'm sorry, my mistake, pretty much, or something. It really has to stop. And it's just like, we're the only ones that seems as if that there's a wrong address, there's a wrong this, there's a wrong that. Why does it always seem to come up to be African Americans?
Well, let me see if I can get through this without crying. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it, but I'm sure y'all will understand. For me, when I watched it, I was watching in sheer horror. To see a grown man in handcuffs, on the ground, face down, begging and pleading. I can't breathe. My stomach hurt. My neck hurt. Um, and then there's a part of me that I kind of put myself in his shoes. Um, what would I feel like if that were me, or my son, or my husband, or my cousins, my grandson? You think of all the people um, that can relate to this, and it seems to happen so often that we've become numb to it. Now, this, I will admit, to me, it seems a bit different where everybody is feeling a certain type of way. We felt a certain type of way for so long, but we've learned to suppress that. We go to work with a smile, act like everything is okay. But this situation is different. We've lost a lot of people through many years, but this seems like a modern day lynching. For the police officers that police properly, thank you. But we need for everybody to police properly.
I
And
tell you. Go ahead, Wendy, please.
and your conversation sparked something in me. As Black mothers, we teach our children, be respectful. No, sir. Yes, sir. Follow orders. If you're stopped, Pay attention. Look them directly in the eye. Don't make any swift moves or anything. So our hope is that in cooperating, we wouldn't end up in situations like that. So it is utter despair when what else can we teach our boys, our husbands, our sons, our brothers, our neighborhood children? I was big mama in the neighborhood. So there were other children besides mine that I had to care for and make sure that they ate, had some place safe that they could go through. And so you worry about all of them. And what else can you teach them to not have the situation happen if you're cooperating? If you are doing everything that you're taught to do, it's just despair. What do you do? What do you do?
Well, Wendy, I want to say something to you. First of all, I appreciate you being big mama in the neighborhood because I remember that there was a big mama in my neighborhood. And yes, she watched everybody's children. And she would get your hind parts in straight before mom and daddy would get your hind parts in straight. So first of all, I want to thank you for being big mama in the neighborhood. And I dream of the day where I could be big mama in the neighborhood because like you said, there needs to be that person in the neighborhood that draw that um attention to. You need to do this, baby, don't do that, don't look them in the eye, don't let them, catch you doing this. We need you here. So continue to be big mama in the neighborhood. We need you because contrary to popular belief, they want to tell you not to say anything to other people's children, but you can't be it everywhere. Mothers can't be everywhere. And we need big mamas like you in the neighborhood to be our eyes and ears and to be there when we can't.
Exactly. Um, the other night I was we were leaving going to the store, my daughters and I. Then we saw one of the neighborhood kids. It was really, really hot, so he had his t-shirt off. I believe he does football and track. And he was running, and I immediately thought of Ahmaud Aubrey. And I says, wow, this guy here, you know, truth being told, okay, I know him from the neighborhood. So he's jogging, and if someone else was to see him with his shirt off running, they may suspect, oh, he just stole something, or did he just break into someone's home? Whereas, why can't he simply just be out taking a run, taking a jog?
Yeah, this thing has changed the whole game. And
Mm,
we're talking about the latest incident, which was Mr. Floyd. But we can't forget about Mr. Eric Garner, who was
Yep,
the original poster child for I Can't Breathe.
yep,
12-year-old Tamir Rice
yep,
playing cops
mhm,
and robbers in the park. Walter Scott in North Charleston, North Carolina, running away from the police, got shot in the back.
yep.
Freddie Gray in
mhm,
Baltimore, Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Philando Castile in
mhm,
St. Paul, Minnesota, Botham Jean in Texas, Breonna Taylor in Louisville. I think Nick already said something about that. And Rodney King, remember that back in 1992.
mhm,
And even reaching back further, Emmett Till, his mother wanted that casket to be open at that funeral so the
mhm.
world could see the
Exactly.
ugliness of racism.
Exactly.
And that was an
Exactly.
ugly sight. This is what I want to ask directly. And I think you've already spoken a little bit, but I want to hit this right where it counts. Now, like I said, for us, this is not new. But this new incident, this new rash of incidents, how does it affect the way you parent and grandparent? Because many of us have grandchildren here, so I think all of us have grandchildren. How does this affect your conversations and your interaction with the black men in your life, especially all of the children, but especially the black men, your husbands, your sons, your grandchildren?
For me, um, what I try to do with grandson is, teaching when you're talking, look in the eye. These are the things that you have to teach a child um, very early. I've seen a post where the young man was saying that, your parents teach you don't go outside with the do rag, don't go outside with without a shirt on. Don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't make any sudden movements. It was like a whole list. And, when we were younger, we were kind of looking at our parents like we were crazy. But now that we're in the spot of our parents, we understand the sheer horror and the genuine concern to make sure that our children are safe. It is imperative to teach the kids from when they are younger, until they grow, um, to be very cognizant of what it is that they do.
And I also want to add to that, Tisha, I've always tried to teach my children to speak articulately, speak up, speak clearly so that they can hear what you're saying and not misinterpret your words for something else. And I think that's something we've gotten away from, is teaching our children how to speak. Um, and not just like she said, say yes ma'am, no ma'am, but to just open your mouth. Don't slur your words because they'll say you're intoxicated. You know, look at them in their face, open your mouth and speak. Speak where you can be heard. So there won't be any misunderstandings and you can't say, well, they're intoxicated or they're on drugs, throw them in the back of the car. And that's not the case.
And also with my grandsons, particularly now, they're of the younger generation who, in their mind, they don't really see color, and they feel like grandma is being a little eccentric because I do, to your point, Paulette, make them use proper English in grammar so that they can articulate what's going on so there's no miscommunication and misunderstanding there when they're trying to communicate with others so these situations don't um, occur. But we also have to set standards, and I'm not saying that everyone doesn't, but as a Black mother, I think we have to go back to being more of, it takes a village to raise our children, so it's going to take the village to ensure no kid falls through the crack. And yes, it is a difficult and different time, but I think it's okay to say, young man, why can't you pull your pants up? You don't
Amen.
want to give the impression that you're something that you're not, because we are being looked at differently all the
Yes, ma'am.
time.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm.
Definitely. Yes, ma'am. I totally agree.
So let me ask the panel: have you all had an incident with your children or your grandchildren, even something recently, a run-in with the police that was spurned on by race? Has that happened to anybody in the panel?
Thank God, no. Um, I haven't had anything with the police. As I mentioned before, from being from Birmingham, Alabama, I've had run-ins with my son with other members of society. We'll leave it like that, where the mother told her child, he's just a black boy. Don't let him intimidate you. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you what my response was because it was less than admirable. But no, my son is not to be feared as someone that's black. My son is someone to be reverenced as a human being. And Tisha and Carl, you all know who my son is, but I had to let him know, son, don't let that bother you because you are a young black man. My son has been a decent, upstanding young man since he was brought into this world. I promise you, he was born at 31, um, and he's been an old man all his life. But being that old man, he has been very articulate in speech, and he's been very, he looked at the lady like supposed to be scared of, and he actually embraced the young guy, and told him, come on man, we're going to get through this together. So that let the young boy know, he's no mama, he's not somebody to be afraid of. It's the ball is really in your court. And I patted him on the shoulder, told him, way to take control of the situation. um and my own other run-ins with people not understanding, coming from the South. Remember, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. We've seen all kinds.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Wow.
I will say that I experienced an incident with my grandson firsthand. Um, I constantly talk to my grandchildren what to do, when to do. You're being watched. So you constantly have to be in safe mode. Otherwise, you'll get caught off guard and a situation will happen. My grandson was driving my car with me in the car. It is a luxury vehicle. And as we pulled out of our driveway,
Oh, wow.
at a four-way stop, a police officer started following us. What he could see in the car was the driver, who was a young black male, lightly tinted windows, not even heavy tint, and he proceeded to follow the car. Now, I'm not small by any means, but I was sunken down in the car where the officer couldn't see me at first, so he thought it was just a young black man in an expensive car
Mm,
driving, and he followed us. And I want to say it was at least 7 or 8 miles. We even took turns turning down streets where we know he really shouldn't be going down, and he followed us all the way out for 7 to 8 miles until we got to a convenience store. And I told my grandson to pull in and let's just see. And he proceeded to move on. And I was saying to him, this is an example of what I was saying to you. If you had even sped for, one moment, if you had did any kind of driving maneuver that was inappropriate, he would have flashed his lights and pulled you over. So you have to be
mhm.
mindful and aware at all times. And black mothers are the only mothers that have to tell their children they can't relax and be themselves. They have to be the standard at all times.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the one moment you falter could put you in a situation. I
Absolutely.
get so fearful as they get older and they want to experiment, some with drinking and whatever. I'm like, that's not a chance you need to take, because the minute you appear intoxicated or something goes on, you are setting yourself up for an incident. And that is my biggest fear as a mother and grandmother.
Oh, wow. Mm.
Well, I tell y'all, I remember this is 1988, I believe. My brother and I, who was in the Navy at the time, we were headed from Norfolk to Sumter, South Carolina. My father had just got back in town from Operation Just Cause down in Panama, and that's back when Route 58, if y'all know, in Southern Virginia, was still called Suicide Strip. They hadn't widened the road yet, so you could dip off into the back roads of Carolina. We normally wouldn't do that at nighttime because you know that the climate down there, there's some places you just don't get caught at nighttime. Well, we took that risk. We got pulled over and we weren't doing anything crazy. I never forget when that sheriff, I don't know who he was, but when you looked at him, he fit the prototypical picture of a redneck, backwoods law enforcement officer who
One of them
didn't
good
like to
old
see
boys.
people. That yeah, but one thing good about him, he didn't ask for license, registration, nothing. He approached the car and said, "Boy, what are you doing in my town?"
Mm.
Now, all of us are near the same age range, right? We know what that means. We both knew it. He looked in, looked at my brother, who was a little darker than I, and I told him, "Sir, we headed down to South Carolina. I want to see my dad. He just got back off of Operation Just Cause. He's in the military. Haven't seen my dad in a year." He looked at me and he said, "You got 10 minutes to get out of my town. We're back there on Route 258, North Carolina. 10 minutes." And he leaned and he said, "You better not be in my town in 10 minutes." Now, y'all do know what that means, right? And I remember getting to Sumter and, telling Mama B what had happened. And I would imagine, of course, I was a young, I think I was 17 years old when that happened, 17, 16, 17. I wasn't in her shoes, the black mom, but I remember the look on her face. And she was like, y'all know better. Why did y'all take that route? You know these folks will kill you. And so that's why I wanted the black mothers on tonight. That horror, you know. And so, Wendy, you were saying earlier about before we came on the air about being in something during your time coming up. Certain time, you had to be back across those tracks.
Absolutely.
Mm.
This is reminiscent for me, not to tell my age, but to tell my age. I was sharing that I grew up in a town that still had whites only and colored only um, fountains downtown that
Mm.
black people still had to go in through the back door. There's a picture, and a lot of children have that picture. It's like they're on a shag carpet with their arms folded and their chins rested, like that. And we went one Sunday to have my picture taken, and we were met by being the first people there, but we could not go in until all of the other persuasions had gone in. I was the last one in, and they would not let me take my picture on the little shag carpet. My picture that is still housed today is of me on the janitor's dust mop with the dust mop turned upside down.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
but this was also at a time while now, due to COVID and protest issues, Sumter, South Carolina is on a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. But in the 60s, it was if you were downtown or if you were away from close to your home area, you did not let dark or close to anywhere near dark catch you over the bridge or across the tracks. You knew you had to be in your home with the doors closed, not stirring around because you didn't want any harm to come to you and your children. So while I'm a black mother now, this started as a black child for me when my mom had to instill in me um, what she thought would keep me safe from hurt, harm, and danger.
Wow.
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 Um, I was just we were talking. My husband and I and my girls were talking the other day, and Tisha and Carl. I know that being from here, you remember in Norfolk, it was the old hotel. Right now, I think it's the Lowe's is there right across from Janif. It
Hmm.
was the old hotel. My husband, he's from Norfolk, and he said he was there. Him and his brother and two friends, and they were just out chit chatting on a summer day, and they was out staying outside their cars. They were about 18. My husband was 18, and his brother was 20, and his couple other friends. He said that the police just rolled up on them and said, "Hey, what are y'all doing? Get in my car. I'm gonna take y'all somewhere." And they were looking like they didn't really move. Then my husband said, as soon as the police officer like flipped the flipped his unsnapped his gun, he was like, okay, well, I guess we need to go. So they took him to another hotel that was down the street, and then it was a Caucasian lady there, and they said, does these meet the description? And then the lady says, no, they don't meet the description. I said that they were older, people like in their 30s. Clearly these boys are in their 18 and 20. So they said, okay, well, y'all get back in the car. And they took them back to where they picked them up from. Just said, okay, y'all can go. Didn't say my apologies or anything. And he said that, that was like one of the worst feelings. And that was his like really first really feel of racism. And he was just like, so if this lady could have lied and said that, hey, oh yeah, that was them, and then they could have been, it would not have been him and I or our kids because he may have been incarcerated somewhere for something that he possibly did not do, which a lot of our men of color are in jail because of things that they have not done.
All because they fit the description,
Description.
or
Hmm.
which
not.
is which is just African American male or black male,
Hmm.
anywhere between 5'5" and 6'5", 150 pounds to 250 pounds. That's half the men
Exactly.
in the United States of America that fit that
Hmm.
description. So it's just a matter of, that's normally the first thing that they say. We're picking you up because you fit the description.
Hmm.
That's
And they
And
don't
everybody.
even really tell you everything.
Right, right.
Hmm.
not
Wow.
just that, there was recently a man who was released from incarceration after 37 years in jail because of the exact same thing. The lady just said he fit the description, but I don't know if that's him. And they went ahead and locked him up. Fingerprints didn't match, didn't have any DNA, and he got cleared after 37 years because they had fingerprints, they had DNA, which didn't match his, but they put him in jail anyway, and he spent 37 years locked up for the exact same thing that you just said, Paulette, that he fit the description of
Of
black
a
male
black man.
that they were looking for.
Right.
Hmm.
Wow. Tisha and I have 4 children, and two of the four have really been affected by this. They have been on demonstration, at least one. Sunday, they went up to D.C. Thank God that they sensed that it was about to get bad, so they did get out of there before things erupted. How are your children dealing with this? How are your grandchildren? Are any of your children being seriously impacted or affected by what's going on around us at this time?
Yes,
Yes.
my daughter is. She's really it's really taking a toll on her because she's like, you go anywhere, and then what really got her was the situation that happened like what a week ago about the Karen in the New York park where the guy was just saying leash your dog, and he was saying it very respectfully, and she
Yeah.
just said, well, I'm going to threaten and call the police and all that type of thing, and she's not understanding. She says, they just have so much hate, and then they don't understand. And then a lot of people just say, well, oh, I mean, why are you guys acting like this? You can't say that because you have not ever experienced not this one time. You don't have to worry about your kids going outside and playing or just going to the mall or just going to the store getting stopped for nothing, and then it turned to be something big. Prime example, just like George Floyd, he was cooperating from every video, every angle that we can see, but you still held this man down for 8 minutes with your knee. Not, and he's asking you, "Can I get up?" And but then you have the Dylan Roof who stopped and got a stop and got Burger King. I'm sure he didn't just have fries, so he had to take his handcuffs off so he can eat his burger. Then the other guy who just did something, I think he killed two people or something. It was on a hunt. You can see him sitting against the car and they giving him water. But
I
yet
saw
this one
that
here,
one.
whenever it's off color, you know, I'm holding you down. I'm killing you.
Right.
That's correct. It has to stop.
And I would like to just comment, we see a lot of people focusing on the riots and the looting and not what the root cause is. It's like saying, I have a cold, but I'm only going to look at the runny nose. I'm not going to get to the root cause of why I have a cold and treat that. And what they don't realize is that this is history repeating itself where we have been devalued. Um, Black people were first considered property. Once we no longer were property, we were devalued. It was nothing. There was no outcry. There was no outrage when homes and communities were burnt down simply because there were Black people living in them. The Black Wall Street we read about, just all of the history. We need to know our history, so that we know, what's the old adage? if you don't correct history, history will repeat itself.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
So we just need to know,
Mhm.
like you said, Paulette, you're not to be, you told your son, you're not to be feared, but you are wonderfully made. You are a human being, and we need to know our value. We need to know our history. And I would like to see um, our history taught so there's some tolerance to understand that there was a time when the um, people doing the burning and the rioting and the lynchings were not people of color. And there was no outcry about that being wrong. So we need to have an outcry on right is right and wrong is wrong. And
Mhm.
not and
Mhm.
so social media, our news outlets also have a history. You see a lot of looters, but they're only showing people of color as looting when there are several people that are not of color that are doing looting as well. And if looting is the motive, you're in the wrong position in the first place. This should be about concern over a life that was um, lost. It wasn't lost, he was murdered. Um,
Exactly.
and that needs to be the concern of murdering innocent people and not the symptom, which is looting or rioting.
When did I unfortunately have, well, I fortunately have seen some of the videos where there were people that are not of color that were out there looting, and they're opportunists. They know that the windows had been busted out or doors had been torn down, so they go in behind the protesters to take advantage or take advantage of an opportunity to get the things that they want and still blame us for it. My and I am so proud of my children here and my children in Birmingham. They are taking the opportunity to work behind the scenes. Um, to help in the protest. They can't physically go, but they're doing things to help, like making donations to the NAACP um, bail fund for the protesters that get arrested, and they will have money for bail. Things like that you could do to help with the protest when you can't be out there. And I think another thing would be educating. Some of us do have friends of another race that maybe don't understand. And I heard my son say that he had to tell some of his friends, educate yourself. Talk to me about what your questions are. Let's have dialogue about what's going on. And if you can't understand, how we feel and you wanted to see firsthand, go look, check out some of the new movies that are coming out. Maybe they can help you understand. And at this case, and when you were Monica was talking about I think it was your dad. The first thing came to my mind. That was the first thing that they brought up in the movie when they I see us, because that was the whole basis of that movie. Six young boys were out, should have been at home, but they happened to be out in the wrong time at the wrong place and was
Mhm.
incarcerated for raping a woman, and they wasn't even there, and they spent a good amount of their life behind bars,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
were not the culprit.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You know.
Go ahead, please, teacher. Go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Uh, Nick said something, that your daughter said something about the hatred. And
Mhm.
I think maybe some of you have a better understanding of it than I do. And that's always plagued me. I'm trying to understand. When you look back, for me, when I look back over my life, being a little boy playing baseball in Chesapeake, Virginia, which was a predominantly white sport, and, having parents use that nasty N word. My brother and I walk into the store for my mom and having grown folks throw trash out of their cars at us, calling us the nasty N word and several other things. You just try to figure out, where does this come from? Today I was watching the Virginia governor, Ralph Northam. He was giving update on several things, and he made a big announcement. Of course, Richmond, Virginia is the capital of Virginia, but it was also the capital of the Confederate. And there's a big old statue of General Robert E. Lee downtown. And all of this that is going on now has finally pushed us. We got the political will to tear it down. He announced that it's coming down. I was watching the comments that was coming in on Facebook, even though the
Mhm.
majority of people had positive likes and loves. That comment section was so full of, you can take it
Mhm.
down, but you can't change our hearts. And I'm just saying, you value the Confederacy. If y'all had won, we'd still be slaves.
Mhm.
How can you tell me is heritage, not hatred, when if the South had won, I may still be a slave? And then after the war was over, from what I
Mhm.
understand, the
Mhm.
Klan was started by Confederate officers. What do you not understand about what's going on? Are y'all feeling the same thing?
I would
Um,
like
Yes.
to. Everybody at one time. Yes, yes, yes. Um,
Mhm.
I would like
Well,
to tie that in because that makes a perfect point. You see comments even today about um, Kaepernick taking a knee and others taking a knee, and that's the big thing for today. What they don't realize, and I see a lot of people are posting that, I stood beside black, white, brown, yellow in the military, and we all had to look out for each other. But the question is, how many of you, when you took off your uniform and was in the street, got treated the way that our black men did? That they went, fought for this country. Some lost their lives, some lost body parts to come home to a country that devalued them and treated them like dirt and still does to this day. But you say it's about dishonoring the flag. It's about this country dishonoring men and women, some who gave their lives defending a country who doesn't care for them.
mhm. And also, I was listening to Whoopi Goldberg on Instagram, and when Drew Brees made that comment, she says, "Well, to you, Drew, both my grandparents, well, grandfathers were in the war. They did the same thing and everything." And she says, "But they couldn't even vote." And so you're saying, so you're not understanding the reason why he's kneeling, so they just don't understand. And then, but if you don't understand, then maybe you shouldn't speak and try and get some more clarity.
right. I
Mhm.
I agree with both of you ladies, and I want to say, and I know a lot of my family back in Birmingham may be watching this, and I am absolutely 100% proud of the mayor Rufkin in Birmingham, Alabama, who just removed their Confederate statue earlier this week, and I was so happy and so pleased to find that out. Unfortunately, the young man has had many death threats on his life since he did that, and it
Wow.
just let you know that, like you said, Carl, they put so much stock in having to remind themselves that we're still in control, and we're going to put this here to keep you all in your place. Um, Even though we have a black mayor, and we have had a black mayor, I think in Birmingham, as long as I lived in Birmingham and knew what the mayoral candidates were all about, starting with Mr. Richard Arrington. So it's time out for
Mhm.
you not thinking for you thinking that this is okay. You want African American people to get past this, you got to get past it as well. You have to learn to let that go so that we can let it go. And as long as you're holding these Confederate figures and Confederate symbols over our heads, we can't let it go because it's
Mhm.
reminding you of what you were back then, but it's also reminding us what you were and what you did to us back then and how far we've had to fight to get to where we are now. Sure, we have African American people in prominent positions, but look what we have to go through to get to where we are. Um, we at For sure, we go through hell and high water to just be able to get you to see past our skin color. And then when you see, I've heard people tell me, and I've heard people tell my mom, you okay for a black woman, or you do good for a black woman. Well, no, I do good for a human being because I was born into the black part and it's not going to change. I was born into the woman part and it's not going to change. I was born as a human being and it's definitely not going to change. So see me as a human being. If you want me to get over it, you get over
Well, now,
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Oh, I just want one little quick thing. Hampton had a school called Robert E. Lee. They changed the name to that too. So, I mean, from that.
wonderful, wonderful.
Hmm.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to say is, the Black Lives Matter movement. Um, when you hear so many people say Black Lives Matter, you have other individuals that say, well, all lives matter. And yes, that is true. But the purpose
Hmm.
in saying that Black Lives Matter is because right now there is a problem within the Black and brown people of color community. We're not saying that your life doesn't matter, but because there is a problem within the Black community, we need you a part of All Lives Matter to stand up for us where we have been wrong so that our Black lives matter and that we aren't being killed. I saw a post that said it best to explain what the Black Lives Matter, what it was, because some people just can't understand. It's the same thing as if you are playing in a tree, you fall down, you break your arm. You go to the doctor to be seen to get your arm repaired. That is not saying that your other arm isn't a good arm, or that your other legs or your two legs aren't good legs, or your two eyes. You're saying you're going to the doctor to address the issue with the arm that is broken. You get a cast put on that arm to help it mend and heal so you become a whole body that can function and move together. That is the whole purpose. And now I'm just summarizing this. This is my little paraphrase on what I take away from. This is how the Black Lives Matter movement is. It is speaking up for the Black and brown people that for whatever reason we're being judged. I think Martin Luther King said it best. Judge me by the content of the character of who I am, not by the color of my skin. That's what I want somebody to look at. When you
exactly.
see me as a person that I deal with you with the utmost respect. I expect the same. Don't
Yes.
treat me less than or make judgments on me because you assume that because I'm, a black person, that I'm a certain type of way. Why don't you
Yep.
take the time to get to know me and then to go back to the Black Lives Matter for somebody that doesn't understand it? Black Lives Matter too. Not saying that no one else, just because I speak on my race or I've seen your shirt say black, just because I'm proud of my black race, it does
That's
not
right.
discount another race. I'm saying I'm proud of my heritage and who I am and how far we have come from being slaves on a boat, not by our choice, to come here, you know, to be a slave on cotton fields.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just like it's so disheartening when you hear some people say, "Go back to where you came from." Well, I've been here in the United States all my life, and if we're gonna talk about that, let's talk about how the land was stolen from the Native Americans. You talk about looting and lynching. Um, that goes all the way back to how did you get the land that you took? You came in, you destroyed people. So let's talk about that. You want to talk about looting? And again, this is going back to what it used to be and how it has come up to what it is now. You basically taught people how to loot and how to take from the next person to claim it as your own. It right is right and wrong is wrong. You don't take from someone to claim that it's yours just because you took it. Do what it is that you're supposed to do to get your own. Be a good person. Help your brother and your sister out, regardless to what the color of their skin is. But don't judge me because mine is brown.
And as
Yeah.
we talk about brown skin, I had one more incident I wanted to talk about, and that was being in a workplace. And this was back in the day, we were all wearing black to work as a sign of solidarity for the Gen 6. And I had a young lady ask me, it was a Caucasian young lady, asked me, why were we wearing black? What was the significance of it? I don't see where that makes any sense. How do you know they weren't um, guilty? And I said, it's because of the assumption that's made because of their color of their skin. She had a granddaughter that was biracial, and I said to her, we are marching so that your granddaughter gets equality. While you see her as your granddaughter, you don't think any less of her because she is a brown skinned baby. The world doesn't see her that way. And if you put me and her on a corner and you on a corner, they see two black people and one Caucasian person. So this is for justice for your granddaughter as well. And so that gave her a different view and approach because she never looked at it that way. So I challenge all of my friends that aren't of color, ask questions, understand, because in her mind that was just her granddaughter. She didn't see her granddaughter as a person of color, but the world sees her granddaughter as a person of color. So this is an effort that you need to jump on the bandwagon too. So I say to all of the listeners, everyone that's watching this broadcast, educate yourselves, ask questions.
Mhm.
Let us define for you what it is we're doing and why we're doing it so that you'll have an understanding. And hopefully, with that comes compassion and stirring in you to make a change. That's what I want. That's my hope as a Black mother.
Yes, and
And
also, you know, to comment on what Tisha said earlier, Black Lives Matter. Um, yeah, you can't say all lives matter until we're all equal. Black Lives Matter because you value the life of an animal over an African American life. You would go through all kinds of extreme circumstances to make sure that animals are treated well and right before you go through the extreme circumstances to make sure that African Americans are treated correctly in this country. And I'm not downgrading PETA or anything, but you have these solemn commercials come on about the dogs and the cats that are not treated right, and the whales in Alaska that are about to be extinct. But how many of you had that commercial to come on and say, "Stop killing our young black males in the street"? This is what we're looking at. And then even when you do, you incarcerate people for an extenuating time for animal cruelty if it's an African American, and then slap someone else on the hand for the same crime. It's not right. It is not fair. And Black Lives Matter. And this is what we're trying to get you to understand. We matter more than an animal, not to degrade him, because I have a four-legged baby, grandbaby in the next room, and I love him to pieces. But when it comes down to a human life,
Well said. Well said. I want to ask something. Uh, there's something different that I'm noticing about the protests now. I remember when everything erupted with Freddie Gray and a few of the other things that have happened in the past that certain cities protested. This has not just been limited to Minneapolis or to the United States. I'm seeing rallies in London and
mm-hmm,
Paris and
mm-hmm,
Nigeria,
mm-hmm,
I believe Australia and Canada.
mm-hmm.
Uh, are you thinking like I'm thinking? I'm starting to have a little hope that this has finally gotten to a point where enough people who don't look like us have finally said, you know what, enough is enough. That seemed to be the saying that I'm hearing more than anything else. Enough is enough.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, I want to take a second to
Mm.
applaud every one of our Caucasian brothers and sisters
Yes.
who are standing with us, who have
Mm-hmm.
finally gotten fed up. And I'm wondering what did it. I will tell you something. I'm noticing I live in Northern Virginia, and one of the first things I noticed when I got here in 2012 was that there were a whole lot of folks and my parents' generation, the baby boomers,
Hmm.
in these different stores, and in their carts they had little brown grandbabies. And I began to think then maybe there's hope for change because it's gonna be mighty hard to look your offspring in the face, looking just like you except with brown skin. And if you did have the mentality of hatred, it has to be pretty difficult to do it now. So I said all that to ask this: do y'all see anything different this time, or are you still skeptical?
And I
Um,
think,
okay. Go ahead.
and I think you hit the nail on the head, Carl, because the lines are being blurred more because of interracial marriages, and you're seeing more people with these biracial children. So they have to say, okay, for the sake of my grandchild, I need to put aside how what I was the way I was brought up. And I saw an article that said um, hatred is you weren't born to hate, you're taught to hate. So sometimes you have to
Mhm.
get away from the way that you think and the way that you've been taught to say, I need to learn my daughter-in-law or son-in-law because now I have this grandchild, and regardless to whether they're a biracial child, that's my grandbaby. And you look at this
Mhm.
innocent life and you said there's no wrong in that grandbaby, but you have to remember half of that grandbaby is half of the person is part of the person that you so called
Mhm.
don't like or don't get along with or don't have connection with. So you have to learn how to put that to the side. And I think that's where all of the nation as a whole are getting on this movement and saying enough is enough. Because we've come to realize they're just as human as we are. When you cut us,
Mhm.
we bleed and we bleed red blood just like everybody else. When we cry, when we hurt, we cry. I mean, when you hit us, we hurt. Our bones break just like yours. We put our pants on one leg at a time, just like you. You know, we're just the same. We just come in a variety of colors. So why not put this to the side and say and get behind the movement and say enough is enough. We have got to stop the senseless killing.
Mhm. I want to give. My husband told me an analogy today. One of his the guys that he works with, his wife said she's a teacher, and what she did was she did an experiment in her class, and she bought a dozen of brown eggs and a dozen of white eggs. And she showed the students, she cracked them, and she says, when I open this egg, it's still yolk and white. And over here, when I open this egg, it's still yolk and, the white. And she said, so when you crack it and you open it, it's the same thing. Just because the covering is brown and this one is white, it's still the same on the inside. So I thought that was a nice, analogy for kids.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
How about you, Tisha? How about you, Wendy? Y'all have any hope?
Yes, I have some hope. I think that a lot of people unfortunately watched a video of a man that was handcuffed, face down, knee in his neck, police officer hand in his pocket. Everybody saw the same thing. This man was in handcuffs, detained. From what it appeared to be, he was cooperating, and everybody saw the same slow, vicious death. And it was traumatizing, in my opinion, to everyone. Everyone has seen the different murders, but this is different because people, I would agree with what Paulette said, people are looking at it as we're all one people. We come in a variety of colors, and we have to help one another. Just because my skin is a little browner than yours, I'm not trash, I'm not throwaway. And because people are seeing this, you have people that have brown babies. You have people that have adopted brown and black babies. So it is starting to be an experience for everyone. Everyone is seeing the sheer horror, and something has to be done, and everybody has to be held accountable for their actions. It's time out for people, accepting the killings. We have to do and be better.
And not a mother in this world can hear their child call for them, and they cannot get to their child to help them to stop the hurt. You cannot hear that and that not literally break your heart. There is no way. If you are a mother and you hear that and that break your heart, you need to check yourself.
Yeah.
One
Literally,
second,
you need
y'all.
to check
I,
yourself.
I think Wendy gonna have to leave in just a minute. I want to make sure I get to her before she has to sign out.
Thank you. I just want to say in response to your question, um, do we have hope? We always have hope. As a Black people, we could not have gotten where we are without hope, but we also need to be watchful of what's going on. The only thing that is going to change our hope into a possibility, into reality, is going to be the action of others. So, yes, I'm very hopeful. Um, from the 60s, Keep Hope Alive. I eternally will keep hope alive, but I will continue to be watchful um, for efforts. I thank you for the opportunity of joining this evening and being on this panel with some awesome and great women, as well as our host and moderator. Thank you, and have a good night, everyone.
Yes, you as well. Nice to meet you.
Thank you
Same here.
so much. Thank you so much. All right. So we appreciate her being here. Lord knows we do.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
we're gonna
Wealth of
mute.
knowledge.
We're gonna mute Tisha's mic real quick. I'm not sure what's going on there. So this is what I want to know. Um, we said when we first started this that we wanted to open the window and allow our audience in to see from a black mother's point of view. What do you want to say to the audience? You open your window. Paulette, I want you to go first. Open your window and speak to the audience and tell them what you would like for them to know.
Ooh, um, it's not okay for you to stand by and idly watch anymore. Um, it's not okay for you to allow your children to not know that you can't just take our lives and not be held responsible. I want you to understand everything in society is not your fault. We make mistakes just like you. And I say that because I had a conversation on Facebook with a young lady who blamed Black people because she could not get public assistance. And I wanted to say something profound to her to bring her awareness. Needless to say, she wasn't trying to hear it, and I wasn't either, so I had to unfriend her. But I want you to understand the violence has got to stop. The killing has got to stop. We are humans. Forget about our skin color. We are human beings. We just happen to be black, brown human beings. So take us out of it. Put yourself in our position, and how would you feel if this was happening to you?
All right. We're gonna have Tisha to go next on that.
I would like to piggyback off of what my sister Paulette just said. Sometimes we have a hard time putting the shoe on our foot when someone else has to wear it. Be mindful of what it is that you say and what you do. I think Martin Luther King said it best: judge me by the content and the character of who I am. I'm paraphrasing, but not the color of my skin. Judge me by my actions, how my morals, my standards. I'm human just like everyone else. Yes, we all make mistakes. We all fall short. When you fall short, you get back up and you try it again. No one is perfect. We're never saying that anyone is perfect, but
Allow me to be a human being in my black or brown skin. I'm a whole person. I wanted to be treated with dignity and respect because that's what I give. I want for our sons, husbands, cousins, brothers, all of those men that are important to someone to come home safely. Just because you go to the store to get pineapples doesn't mean that it should be a death sentence because you have brown skin.
Amen. Amen.
Everyone's life is valued. And again, the question goes back to how would you feel if you sent your son, who happens to be a little bit lighter to me, lighter than me, to not come home because of the color of his skin? So
Amen.
understand where people are coming from. If you don't understand, then ask questions, but don't be so quick to rush to judge.
Judge.
All right, thank you. All right, Neat, you the anchor on this one. The window is open. What do you want our audience to know?
Well, I've enjoyed myself. One, two, um, to be safe and to educate yourself and to learn about your history and see what you can do to be part of that change. I know that we're such a forgiving race. We've been treated wrong, and it has to stop. Since people are doing the we're pushing for a change. Just continue to see what you can do, and just really just get out there and do what you can do, and just really just be safe, and just treat people the way that you want to be treated, and just really be safe. Until we can really get a change. Like we've had change before. Back in the '60s and '70s and the '50s, and we've gotten through things, and we will get through this. And it's gonna stop. It's gonna stop. Thank you,
All right,
guys.
thank you. So we're going to wrap up here. I love what Nick just said, and I'm saying that myself. For our audience members, especially our non-black audience members, if you're trying to really understand, maybe you don't. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them to do unto you.
Man.
I'll tell you something that I'm telling all of my Caucasian friends who will listen. There's no more middle ground.
Mm-mm.
The middle ground is soiled with our blood.
That's right.
It is now sacred ground. You can't stand there. Either stand up and use your privilege to help this situation. Enough is enough.
Mhm.
Or please just identify yourself for who you are and stand on the other side. No problem. But willful ignorance about this situation is just no longer acceptable.
Mm-mm.
Please don't be silent, and please open your heart to understand. And all that get an
Get an
understanding.
understanding.
Right.
Amen.
So we appreciate you guys who have hung with us. Thank you so much for listening. We hope this has been a blessing to you. Tomorrow night at 7:30, we're going to come back, and we're going to do part two of this. We have a whole different cast. And so we're going to continue our talk about mothering black men and boys in this hands up, don't shoot climate. Thank you. May God bless you. May heaven smile upon you. Until tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m., be well.
Amen.
Amen.